In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to make a perforated edge for your postage stamp. First thing you need to do is create a layer that is going to house the background of your stamp with the perforated edge. And that needs to be on a different layer than your base or your background color. All right. So in my example here, my base is gray and I'm going to make my perforated edge white. It helps if in your color palette over here in your tools bar, if both the foreground and the background color are the same color. So I'm going to simply select the white so that they're both white, and I'm going to make sure that I have the same color for both the foreground and the background. Then I'm going to take my ellipse rectangular shape and I'm going to make my background, which is going to house the perforated edge. I'm going to fill that, Option Delete, with white. And then I'm going to go get my brush window. And if you hit F5 on your keyboard, your brush window comes up. Then if I hit B on my keyboard, then my brush becomes active and my brush window highlights so that it is ready to go. You have to work with a couple of settings in your brush. Make sure that none of the brush presets are selected. And then you need a hard edged brush, so the 30 default seems to work pretty good. And then you can adjust the size of that perforated edge by working with the size and then the spacing. And as you can see, the greater the spacing, the more room between each of the dots. So get that set up. And you're probably going to have to experiment with the size and the spacing depending on the shape and size of your postage stamp. So I'm going to just try 22 and 140. Then I go up and in my paths I have to make a work path. And the tolerance is at 0.5, which is okay. And then all I have to do is select this little button, which is Stroke Path with Brush. And there is my perforated edge. If I click off the work path, I can kind of see better what kind of perforation I have. And I feel like it's a little bit big and clunky, so I'm going to redo it. So I'm going to just hit Command Z and go back to my brush window, and I'm going to make it smaller. So I'm going to try 12 pixels and 150. And then I simply just go back up, make sure my work path is selected, and hit that button again. And when I deselect, I can see what kind of perforation I have. And I think that's good for demonstration purposes. So you can keep playing with it until you get it the way you like it. So now that I have my perforated edge, I want to make a design element which is going to have, I'll go back to here, which is going to house my circle shape. So, and then I want to also work with getting that perforated edge, on that circle element. So to do that, I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to go get my elliptical marquee tool. I have some guides that I set up, so Command semicolon gets my guides up. And I know that right about here is the center of my ellipse that I want. So with that, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and the Option key, and I'm going to center that, and I'm going to pull out and make a nice ellipse shape. I want it to be filled with deep dark red. So I'm going to choose that, and then to fill with foreground is the shortcut is Option Delete. And if I don't like that color, which feels a little dark, then I can simply adjust it, Option Delete, and there is my ellipse. The next step is to put the perforated edge onto my circle shape. So to do that, I deselect my marching ants on my circle layer. I go to my perforated edge layer and I put my little cursor over the thumbnail image there and I command click to get the marching ants for the perforated edge. Then I want to apply that edge to my circle shape, so I select my circle layer. Then I have to inverse my selection. So the shortcut for that is Command Shift I. And now you can see that I have a nice little edge selected for my ellipse shape. I hit Delete and then Command D to get rid of my marching ants. And there is my circle shape with the perforated edge that matches up nicely with the background. So the next step is to make the pop dots. In order to do that, I'm going to duplicate the circle shape layer, and I'm going to call that pop dots. And I'm going to put the pop dots texture on top of my circle. Now, you can change the color if you want, but I want my pop dots to be the same kind of value as the background of the circle color. So if I didn't, then I could simply do my command click and I could change the color, right? But I kind of want that. So I'm going to work with similar color. So with my pop dots layer selected, I need to go over and you need to invoke the edit in quick mask mode. So click on that and you know you're in quick mask mode when your layer turns pink. Then I need to use the gradient tool for this. And when I select my gradient tool, my bar at the top of my Photoshop interface has some settings that I need to make sure are set up properly. So you want to have kind of a grayscale to transparency in your settings. So look for that. It has to be transparent. So look for the grayscale to transparent. And then you also need to have your linear gradient set, which is the first button there. Okay. Then I can go over with my gradient tool selected and I'm going to just drag my gradient tool across, and that gives me a little bit of a gradient quick mask. Then I go up to the filter and I go to filter gallery, and under the sketch folder you look for your halftone pattern, and then you can edit that depending on the size of the dot you want and also how much contrast. And that basically, the contrast in black and white is how much of that color is going to bleed through. So you might have to play with those to kind of get the desired effect. Hit OK. Then you hit the Q key. And what that does is show the texture that you're going to be working with. And then all I need to do is hit the delete key. And because it's the same color, it's a little hard to see, but I'm going to deselect my marching ants, Command D. And you should be able to see now on that pop dots layer, that's kind of the desired effect. Now, because my pop dots is the same color, I'm going to work with my blend modes up here in order to get a nice effect. So the first thing you have to do in order to, you can certainly manually go down and start playing with, how that looks, right? But if you go up and you select your move tool, then what that does is enable you to use a shortcut to run through your blending modes. So using the Shift key and the plus and minus sign, I can kind of move through the different blending modes to see which one I like. And I'm kind of looking for one that doesn't have too much drama to it. I just want it to kind of be a subtle background. So I think I'm going to work with maybe the screen. That's kind of nice. And another thing you can do is if you get one you like, you can always back off the opacity and adjust that, so that it's, if you don't want it to be too strong. But I think the screen mode works pretty good.